Hey, g'day everybody, it's Matt here from MATTCARVES. So today I'm going to show you how to carve these tiny little boats and actually why I've carved so many of them. But I'm also going to give you a little bit of a lesson on how to paint the boats so they kind of get that kind of like real rusticy kind of effect with the rust coming through and all of that kind of stuff and those fine details around the window. I actually painted this with one brush, doesn't have to be a tiny brush. Anyway, so that's coming up. And we're also going over to the west coast of New Zealand to find a 1,000-year-old tree. Okay, so we are cutting these little boats out of Jara today, which is nice Australian wood. It's got a beautiful reddish kind of colour to it. And it's a real kind of a hardwood, which is good for these sort of like small details. Just sort of like, so I've cut them out, now I'm sort of like drawing on what the boat is going to look like. So here I am, I'm carving out the bottom of the boat. I'm going to try and leave that kind of rail there. So I'll shape the bottom of the boat and then I will shape the top of the boat. And I'm sort of trying to get that kind of cabin look. Gotta be very careful here that the burr doesn't spin around that edge there and go around the other side. You sort of see I'm sort of holding the boat so if the burr spins around, it won't get my fingers. And I'm using a Kutzall burr there. I'm using I think that's a coarse burr. I wouldn't use the extreme on this because it's just a little bit too extreme. And with those coarse burrs, and that's a fine flame burr, they don't tend to sort of grip too much, so you're not going to have too many problems on these smaller objects, but you still got to be very, very careful. Here's a nice little detailed kind of cutter burr, just putting in the little lines there of the boat. And you don't want to be perfect. All of these boats that I make, they're all different. Everyone is different, and I actually make them, I'm going to tell you now, I actually make them because I actually make jewelry for a living. Well, it's one of my jobs anyway. I do lots of jobs. Being an artist, you sort of got to do what you can to make a little bit of money. So there I'm using a nice sort of like diamond burr there. And go and check out I Can Carve. He's a great carver and he's just made these cool little houses and he used that burr to put in the tiles of the houses. So here I am putting in, I've decided to put portholes on these ones. So do some portholes there. Okay, we're going to have a slight intermission here as we travel to the west coast. It's very, very damp on the west coast. So you have beautiful mosses and trees growing, and here we are off to see a 1,000-year-old tree. Julie just said we're like two little hobbits off to the Remu tree, or maybe it's a magical tree. Oh, watch your head, Julie. Well, I think it's up here. Right. Look at it.
Oh, wow.
You can see it through the trees. I think it's like, it says it's like 40 meters high. Ooh, look at that. That is awesome.
If I stand slightly behind
Yeah. And there's little Jolie. She's quite big, really. Oh, she's not that big. Not even close, Julie. Okay, so that was the west coast, and next week I'm going to tell you why this water is this colour, and it's not pollution. Okay, so we're going to get back to the carving now. Now to get that sort of rustic kind of effect, it's great to sort of like use a orange paint and do a base layer of orange. Okay, so whenever you're trying to make a little bit of money out of selling things, it's always quite good to sort of like batch things. So here I am, I'm making a whole lot of boats. As I said before, I sell them for a living. I sell these for around $30 New Zealand. So out of that little piece of wood that wasn't that big, I was gonna maybe make $200 out of it. Okay, so here I'm putting the blue layer over, you want to be sort of like pretty casual about that blue layer, because you want sort of like a little bit of the orange to come through. But like if you do cover it too much, when it's still wet, just sort of like scrape a little bit off to your desire. Even if it dries, you can actually sand it and bring the orange back out. Here I am, I'm using just a scalpel and just bringing that orange back out on those edges. Looks pretty cool. And so it sort of accentuates it a little bit there. Okay, so a lot of people at markets ask me how I get that really fine detail around the window. How do you paint that on, they say. Anyway, so I don't paint it on, I kind of scrape it out. So what you need to do is you need to find yourself some like masking tape or some painter's tape. Draw on the little window that you want to use, and then use a really sharp knife or blade to cut that window out. And just get a little bit of black paint and put it on the boat. Wow, that little gap there anyway. So here we go. And then the trick is to peel it off. And I use this little needle here, and I just scrape the window in. It looks a whole lot better with that little detail there of the window. Anyway, I feel that anyway. Very cool. And if you've got little black bits going out the edge, you can get a little bit of white paint and touch that up or scrape it off. And here I am, I'm actually bringing out a little bit more orange on this one. Okay, so I just use these little brooch pins on the back. And what you want to do with these, because they're quite shiny, is just use a bit of sandpaper to roughen it up. And I use this syringe glue. It's sort of like a 2-pack glue, and it's very, very clear. I use it for all of my jewelry actually. It's just extremely very, very strong. So you just put out as much as you want and then mix it together, and you got a couple of minutes for it to set. And I use kebab sticks a lot. They're very, very cheap to buy, and you just put a little bit on the brooch pin and then put it on the boat, and you're away laughing. Awesome. Okay, so if you found that useful, you can support me by buying me a coffee in the link below. That would be much appreciated, but not necessary if you don't feel flush or anything like that. And here are a few of the other brooches I've made, and I might show you how to make them in the future.